Late afternoon's golden haze had already surrendered to deepening blues over Willow County when Sheriff Cole Andrews drove onto the soft shoulder of Marsh Road. He eased to a stop overlooking the expanse of cattail and buttonbush, the tangled wetlands shifting in the faint breeze. At his side sat Rook, a 2-year-old brindle pitbull with a stocky build and a nose that could tease out a single grain of contraband among 100 sacks of grain. Rook's keen amber eyes flicked between Sheriff Andrews and the flat, mirror dark water, his ears tilted forward in expectant alertness. Just over 2 months earlier, budget cuts had forced Willow County to retire its lone bloodhound, leaving the department short-handed in narcotic sweeps and fugitive pursuits. Reluctantly, Andrews had offered Rook a chance under the fledgling K9 crossover program, instead of pedigreed scenthounds. Resourceful pitbulls like Rook could harness street-bred tenacity and an extraordinary sense of smell to track human fugitives and hidden drugs alike. With only weeks of intensive training, obedience, scent discrimination, controlled aggression, Rook had already exceeded every expectation. Today's mission was urgent. An armed parolee named Jace, Knuckles, Moreno had slipped from a routine traffic stop 2 nights ago and vanished into the wetlands, leaving only a shattered windshield and scattered shell casings in his wake. Deputies combed the roads and backwoods trails. Search and rescue teams fanned out with flashlights. But the tangle of reeds and mucky ground swallowed footprints as soon as they formed. Traditional trackers had lost the scent hours ago. Now, with dusk bleeding away, Sheriff Andrews placed faith in Rook's dogged perseverance. Andrews unclipped Rook's leash, whispered the cue, and watched as the dog settled onto his haunches. From a small vial Andrews dabbed a cloth with a faint trace of Moreno's aftershave, collected from a taco stand receipt he'd abandoned, and pressed it to Rook's nostrils. Instantly, Rook inhaled, nostrils flaring, then sprang forward, nose to the ground, tail aligned with his spine. The dog moved swiftly, weaving through knee-high grass, pausing only to micro-adjust on every gust of wind that carried the faintest residue of hyper-focused adrenaline and cheap cologne. Deputy Laura Singh followed with her high-powered flashlight and handheld radio. She called out in low tones, "Sheriff, he's heading north along the creek bed." Her beam caught sparks on broken twigs and scattered leaves. They trudged for half a mile, splashing through shallow water now brimmed with fallen oak leaves, until Rook's pace steadied at the bank of a narrow slough. He nosed the water, whiskers trembling, then veered inland toward a dense stand of bald cypress. Andrews tightened his grip on the radio. "We've got a location," he whispered. "Light up thermal." Singh hit a button and scanned through her night vision scope over the carpet of ferns and brambles. 200 yards ahead, a hazy red shape crouched behind a hollow trunk. It was Moreno, his gaunt frame hunched in the shadowed knot of the tree, rifle cradled across his knees. Rook halted a dozen feet from the trunk, muscles coiled. He offered a deep, controlled bark, 2 low pitches that carried like a gravestone toll through the swamp's stillness. Deputy Singh tapped into the body cam on her shoulder to broadcast the thermal image back to dispatch. "Target in sight," she reported. "Copy. Dispatch. Units converge on the wetlands clearing." Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, echoing off gnarled cypress roots. Moreno froze as Rook barked again, this time higher. A signal Sheriff Andrews had drilled during training to indicate, "Hold your ground, suspect located." The dog remained motionless, gaze locked on the man, ears swiveling at every sigh of shifting water. Sheriff Andrews raised his voice, steady but firm. "Sheriff's office. Come out with your hands or we'll be forced to enter." Rook's bark punctuated the warning. For a moment, nothing moved but the haze of mosquito fog drifting through the trees. Then Moreno's chest heaved. He exhaled a raspy laugh. He swept the barrel of his rifle skyward, a slow pivot that crackled danger. Deputy Singh murmured, "We have an armed suspect." Her fingers hovered over her radio. Andrews took a breath, then nodded. "Rook, secure." The dog responded to the solidity in Andrews's tone, no longer the silent hunter but standing sentinel at the front line. Seconds later, reinforcements breached the tree line, 2 uniformed deputies in full tactical gear, weapons trained but keeping a safe distance. Moreno hurled the rifle into the mud, stumbling backward as they advanced. Rook remained at Andrews's side, his stance relaxed now that the threat had dissipated. The deputies cuffed Moreno and read him his rights as he sank to the ground. Eyes wild but unarmed, under the floodlights of the patrol vehicles, Sheriff Andrews knelt beside Rook, brushing a hand through his brindle fur. "Good boy," he murmured. "Excellent work. Couldn't have done it without you." Rook sat, chest rising and falling steadily, tail thumping once before settling. The streamed thermal footage froze on dispatch screens, a single red flare of a fugitive immobile against the blackness. Surrounded by the cold green of the swamp, captured by the instincts of a dog who refused to quit. In the days that followed, news outlets hailed the arrest as a victory of innovation over budget cuts. How an unassuming Pitbull cross had out-tracked expert teams in unforgiving terrain and brought an armed fugitive to justice without a single shot fired. Law enforcement analysts lauded K9 crossover as the future of rural policing, a testament to resourcefulness and the unexpected power of breeds long overlooked for conventional canine roles. At the station, Deputy Singh replayed the night vision and K9 cam footage for her fellow officers. They watched Rook's focused strides through the swamp, his disciplined barks, the moment he drew the suspect from his hiding place without endangering the deputies. Trainers crowded the briefing room, nodding at the seamless coordination between human and hound, already drafting new protocols for integrating scent-trained pit bulls into search operations across the county. Sheriff Andrews submitted his report with pride. Rook had earned not only today's citation for valor in the line of duty, but a permanent place in Willow County's history as the dog who followed a fugitive's scent through knee-deep muck, then held him fast until justice could arrive. And for Rook, the greatest reward was a simple scratch behind the ears, the soft clink of his badge-engraved collar, and a bowl of extra tender kibble waiting back at the kennel, tokens of gratitude from the people he had sworn to protect in his own steadfast way. As the first pale light of dawn filtered through the swamp's veil of mist, Rook rested at the edge of the patrol vehicle's kennel compartment, his brindle coat still flecked with mud and dew. Sheriff Andrews approached, still in his damp gear, and lowered himself beside Rook. "You did it, boy," he said softly, brushing a hand across the dog's broad shoulders. Beyond them, deputies catalogued shell casings and blood-hunted footprints, the final evidence of Moreno's desperate flight now safely behind locked doors. Word of Rook's daring pursuit spread swiftly through Willow County. Townsfolk who had once been wary of a pit bull as a working K9 now lined the sidewalks outside the station, offering smiles and pats on Rook's head as they gathered for an impromptu parade. Children clutched homemade signs, "Rook, our nose in the night," and "Brindle Braveheart," while local bakeries sold celebratory cupcakes shaped like paws. News helicopters circled overhead, washing fields and wetlands in helicopter rotor shadow, capturing footage of Rook trotting proudly beside Sheriff Andrews beneath the morning sky. Inside the station's briefing hall, trainers and deputies convened around the large conference table. Deputy Singh replayed night vision footage on the projector, pausing at Rook's precise moment of bark alert, then at the thermal silhouette of Moreno in his hollowed cypress. The group discussed refinement of their scent training protocol, how to incorporate shifting swamp currents, cross-contamination from livestock, and variable humidity levels into the curriculum. Trainers proposed adding mock fugitive exercises in water up to a dog's belly, teaching new K9 teams to navigate unseen obstacles beneath the surface. Rook, attentive at their feet, trained his gaze on every speaker as though absorbing each nuance of his colleagues' plans for the future. By week's end, Sheriff Andrews stood before the county commission to request formal funding for an expanded K9 crossover division, complete with a scent-proof kennel facility, mobile spray odor trailers stocked with target compounds, and a specialized wet terrain course modeled on the Willow Marshes. He presented a concise recap: a fugitive with multiple felony warrants captured without gunfire. The community reassured, crime deterred, all thanks to one dog's unerring determination. The commissioners, moved by the positive publicity and public support, voted unanimously to approve the budget increase, a rare reversal in an era of tight purse strains. That afternoon, Rook and his handler, Deputy Singh, led the inaugural class of new recruits through the freshly graded training grounds. Under bright flags marking wind direction and scent release points, young handlers and their assorted pit bull, terrier, and Mastiff crosses learned to read each dog's posture, differentiate the low-toned bark of "trail found" from the high-pitched bark of "attention needed," and guide their partners through waist-high swamp grass trailing faint whiffs of human presence. As the sun climbed overhead, roasting off the morning chill, each dog found its quarry in swift succession, proof that the first night's success was no fluke but the beginning of a new chapter in rural policing. By nightfall, Willow County's deputy sheriffs and their K-9 partners gathered in the mess hall to share stories of the day's exercises. Over steaming bowls of gumbo, they toasted Rook's health and thanked him for opening doors once sealed by tradition. Sheriff Andrews raised his glass. "To Rook," he said, voice hushed but unwavering, "for blazing the path when the marsh swallowed our footsteps and fear whispered in the dark. May every dog that follows carry his courage into the night." And amid the clink of glasses, Rook, exhausted but content, drifted into a peaceful sleep, ready to answer every call that might echo across the misty wetlands at dawn. Weeks later, just as the first thaw of spring coaxed fresh green shoots from the marsh floor, Rook found himself running a different kind of operation. A tip from a confidential informant had led deputies to a remote cabin not far from the bog's edge, rumored to be a stash house for a violent narcotics ring. Traditional search warrants had turned up nothing on foot patrol, but Sheriff Andrews knew exactly how to clear the property without endangering officers or neighbors. He'd send in Rook. Under cover of pre-dawn fog, Deputy Singh guided Rook to the back door of the weathered cabin. Rook's ears flicked at every creak of the wood siding, tail sweeping in quiet anticipation. Singh pressed a small rubber baton against Rook's flank, a gentle reminder to stay low and silent. With a swift signal from Andrews, the front door team breached, rifles ready, while Rook slipped through the back. Nose to the ground, he paused at the threshold, inhaling the faint tang of acetone and stale tobacco. His hackles rose. Inside, metal canisters and plastic baggies lay scattered across a folding table. Rook backed up and sat, emitting a single low growl that translated into, "Find hidden." Deputies converged on his signal, flashing their lights into a corner where a loose floorboard had been pried open. Beneath it lay stacked cellophane bricks of methamphetamine, enough to supply half the county. The suspect, slumped in a threadbare armchair, surrendered without a shot fired. When the squad car door closed on him, Singh knelt and slipped a congratulatory ear scratch to Rook. "You just saved our budget more than any drug raid could," she whispered as the morning sun cut through the windows in golden stripes. That afternoon, Rook received a second Valor citation in as many months, this one for contribution to narcotics enforcement. Sheriff Andrews pinned the medal to Rook's harness. Surrounded by deputies who cheered and journalists scribbling notes, Rook stood tall beneath the noise, nose twitching at the faint click of cameras. But his gaze found only Andrews's face. In those deep amber eyes lay the same steadfast devotion that had guided him through every swampy bog and every hostile cabin. Soon, the department organized the first K-9 crossover showcase at Willow County Fairgrounds. Dozens of teams, some classic bloodhounds in their venerable robes, others Pitbull crosses in sleek training vests, demonstrated their specialties. Rook and Singh performed the swamp track exercise, racing through knee-high water and reed tunnels to locate a hidden, suspect mannequin. Rook paused only to bark a 3-beat pattern that meant, "Trail hot," then led Singh in a straight line to the dummy. The crowd erupted, children on their father's shoulders cheering every bark. Later, in the livestock pavilion, Rook switched gears for the barn sweep demonstration, sniffing out staged bunkers of hidden pills and explosives among hay bales and feed sacks. When he signaled beneath a loose plank in a loft floor, handlers pried it open to reveal packets of counterfeit pharmaceuticals. Andrews used the moment to underscore the program's flexibility. With Rook, "We don't need separate teams for drugs or fugitives. He's one dog with two masters, trained to protect our community from every threat." By midsummer, the K-9 crossover division had expanded to include 5 full-time handlers and 7 dogs, each a Pitbull or street mixed cross whose tenacity and intelligence matched Rook's original promise. They patrolled highways for stowaways, checked back roads for clandestine grow operations, and even assisted in search and rescue missions when hikers went missing in the nearby state park. At each call-out, whether they found lost campers or felons on the run. Rook's division demonstrated that a Pitbull's loyal heart could rewrite every stereotype once and for all. As autumn painted the marshes auburn, Rook approached his third anniversary with the department. The sheriff's office held a private ceremony at the training facility, unveiling a bronze relief of Rook's profile on a slab of swamp stone, mud-caked and barn-silhouetted. The dog's muzzle raised defiantly toward the sky. Underneath, a simple inscription read, "Rook, the brindle sentinel who never lost a trail." In his retirement years, grayed but undiminished, Rook remained on call as the department's canine emeritus. His wisdom passed on to every new recruit. He attended graduation ceremonies, children leaning in to hear his quiet pant, veterans patting his head as though greeting an old comrade, and whenever a storm threatened the county or a child slipped out of sight at the fair, a single bark in the distance carried the weight of every adventure Rook had ever led, reminding Willow County, day after day, that courage lies where loyalty lives, and that even a single Pitbull can blaze a path of safety through the darkest thickets. Even as Rook settled into the gentle rhythm of his emeritus years, marsh grasses giving way to goldenrod and then frost, his legacy continued to shape Willow County's landscape of safety and solidarity. On crisp October mornings, he still ambled onto the damp practice field behind the station, where handler candidates gathered to greet him before drilling scent protocols. His muzzle had silvered with age, and his gait was slower, but the clarity of his watchful gaze never wavered. When Deputy Singh released a young Pitbull apprentice to follow a scent trail, Rook would rise from the dew-drenched grass and pad alongside, nudging the pup with a gentle shoulder as if to say, "Keep at it." One chilly dawn, the department staged an unprecedented live exercise, a mock disaster in the old section of town, where a simulated gas main break and subsequent blaze forced evacuation of a century-old neighborhood. Smoke machines billowed fog through the narrow streets and over cracked sidewalks, strewn with debris panels and overturned mailboxes. Handlers and dogs moved in teams, clearing homes room by room, searching for the victims clinicians had placed at strategic choke points. Rook, tethered to Deputy Singh by a faded leather lead, accompanied the command post caravan in a nearby command trailer. Inside the trailer, Sheriff Andrews monitored multiple camera feeds, thermal arrays, helmet cams, drone overviews, when an alert pinged softly on the dispatch console. It was Rook's handler Mark, Ember, a vibrant 3-year-old Pitbull cross, had barked twice in the narrow alley behind the old firehouse, signaling a hot location. Ember's lead directed the hose teams to a carbon monoxide victim slumped in a back room, his airway compromised. Within moments, EMTs whisked the mannequin to safety and administered oxygen. While Ember received a calm ear scratch through the haze, Sheriff Andrews smiled at the monitor, then pivoted to Rook and offered him a soft pat through the trailer door. "You showed them how it's done, old friend." By late fall, the K9 crossover division had grown into a full department of its own, complete with specialized vehicles outfitted for wet entry and barn operations, and a dedicated fund to sustain its ever-expanding mission. Yet nothing in the new fleet was as revered as the silver-plated plaque mounted on the original patrol truck's dashboard, a hand-engraved silhouette of Rook's proud profile. Beneath the words, first of his name, "Forever our Sentinel." As winter's hush drifted over the marsh, Rook's adventures took on a quieter hue. Rather than tracking fugitives or hidden contraband, his big brindle paws now tapped across school gym floors during reading hour, where children sprawled with storybooks about perseverance, loyalty, and friendship's true armor. He lounged beside the fireplace in the county senior center, eyes half closed in contentment as veterans recalled Rook's exploits and compared them with tales of cavalry scouts and search and rescue sled dogs. When the first thaw of spring released the wetlands from their icy grasp, the department unveiled its most ambitious project yet, the Rook Walkway. A raised boardwalk snaking through the heart of the marsh. Flagstones along the path bore plaques honoring each milestone in Rook's career: his first fugitive track, his cabin raid discovery, his valor citations, and finally his emeritus role mentoring new K9 teams. On opening day, Rook padded down the walkway beside Sheriff Andrews, Deputy Singh's grandchildren trailing close behind to marvel at the bronze reliefs set into the rails. Rook paused at each marker, nose brushing the cool metal as if sensing the echoes of his own triumphs. That afternoon, as families picnicked under budding cattails and the late afternoon sun gilded the water's edge, a single female silhouette emerged from the swamp on the K9 trail. It was Rook's first protégé, Whiskey, the Pitbull lab cross that had taken over his swamp patrol duties. Whiskey, too, had grown into an unflappable tracker, and as she passed Rook, the two locked eyes in a moment of pure understanding. The baton of guardianship had passed. Yet neither stood alone. In the seasons that followed, Willow County's prowl program expanded beyond its borders. Deputies traveled to neighboring jurisdictions for cross-training, sharing the crossover curriculum with towns that once scoffed at pitbulls and service vests. Rook's story was woven into every lesson, a living case study in adaptability, trust, and the surprising places courage can surface. And when Rook finally closed his eyes for the last time, gently, in the quiet warmth of Deputy Singh's arms, he left behind more than a bronze relief or a faded harness. He left an entire community transformed by one dog's unfaltering devotion, a program reborn from necessity into a model of resourcefulness, and a generation that learned to see beyond breed and into the steadfast heart within. Under a canopy of cattails turned golden with autumn's approach, Willow County now paused each dawn to recall Rook's journey, how he raced through shrouded swamps, unmasked hidden threats, and showed that loyalty, once set free, can blaze brighter than any budgetary constraint or inherited stereotype. Presence before catastrophe remained their rallying cry, echoing in every bark, every curriculum, every child's lesson, and forever immortalized on a winding boardwalk where one dog, with steadfast nose and bridle pride, had taught them how to follow the faintest scent straight to safety. In the months that followed Rook's final walk along the newly christened boardwalk, Willow County found itself quietly transformed. Wherever dawn broke across the marsh, families paused on their porches or beside kitchen windows to recall the brindle sentinel who had carved a new path through the wetlands, and through every heart that believed pitbulls were too rough to serve. Under the dew-damp cattails, the boardwalk's bronze plaques caught the light, each one a milestone in Rook's storied career, his first track in the dark. The cabin bust that yielded a suspect's cache, the valor citations now worn like metal bars by a humble dog who never asked for praise. Yet Rook's spirit lived on most vividly in Whiskey, the lean Pitbull lab cross that had been his first apprentice. From the moment Whiskey had slipped into Rook's veteran paw prints, nose down, tail level, she carried forward a legacy of fearless loyalty. On any given evening, you could find Whiskey at the training grounds, ears perked as Deputy Singh issued silent hand signals, forward, scent, bark, secure, and Whiskey would weave through mock obstacles, fallen logs, spider-webbed hollows, tangle of reeds, at a pace that belied her youth. The dog's every muscle fine-tuned by the crossover curriculum that Sheriff Andrews had forged in Rook's image. When the first wildfire of the season sprang to life in the pine ridges west of town, Whiskey's moment came sooner than expected. An embattled paramedic team radioed that a bulldozer operator had gone missing behind the line of flame, last seen chasing a running ember. The helicopters couldn't fly in the dense smoke, and ground crews risked incineration. Sheriff Andrews assembled his K9 crossover unit at the fire's edge, Whiskey, outfitted in a flame-resistant vest, alongside a search and rescue German Shepherd and the department's new drone operator team. Under a sky choked with ash, Whiskey advanced beyond the fireline brigade's protective hoses. Deputy Singh, sweat beading at her hairline, followed with her handheld radio and a high-capacity headlamp. Whiskey paused at a scarred sapling, nostrils flaring, then bounded forward, straight toward a smoldering outcropping of brush. Flames curled around her harness but did not slow her pace. There, half buried beneath charred brambles, lay the operator's helmet, visor cracked but face shield raised. Whiskey barked once, twice, Dante's old signal for target here, and Deputy Singh knelt to lift the flame-weary man into a rescue basket they'd carried in. Above them, drone lights guided the county ambulance's rooftop medevac team in through narrow breaks in the canopy. By the time the paramedics straightened in the mobile hospital's triage bay, Whiskey had been presented with her own valor citation, flame etched upon the crossover division's metal rack. The headlines read, "Pitbull Lab Cross becomes fire's final path to rescue." And social media feeds overflowed with hashtags celebrating whiskey's calm under conflagration. Yet for Deputy Singh, the greatest reward was a silent, exhausted nuzzle into her palm as they returned home under star-buried skies. At the next county commission meeting, Sheriff Andrews once again advocated for expanded funding, this time to secure flame-resistant kennels and wildfire-retardant training vests. He spoke of whiskey's courage alongside Rook's, of how Pitbull crosses could match any hound in scent acuity and more than rival them in grit when the heat was on. The commissioners, mindful of the season's raging fires and the ever-tightening budgets, approved a modest but critical expansion, and began drafting emergency pre-funding measures to ensure equipment arrived before the next blaze ever broke out. Meanwhile, the K9 Crossover Academy, housed in the refurbished barn behind the sheriff's station, became a regional training hub. Handlers from neighboring counties brought their own street-smart mixed breeds to learn the crossover protocols, scent drill sequences, bark syntax signals, command hand shapes refined by months of field testing. In the Academy's lecture hall, Sergeant Morales, a bloodhound specialist who had once doubted Rook's potential, now taught the hybrid pursuit course, demonstrating side-by-side comparisons of tracking patterns between classic scent hounds and crossover breeds. He concluded every class with a direct quote from Sheriff Andrews. "We don't care what breed you are, only that you stand fast when those we protect need you most." In the quiet moments between deployments, families who had once cowered at the marsh's edge now organized swamp walk fundraisers to pay for Rook's boardwalk maintenance, to support whiskey's flame-retardant vest replacements, and to endow a scholarship in the family's name for handlers who could not otherwise afford the specialized gear. Children shrieked with delight as they followed scent courses set up in the high school's football field. And elders sipped sweet tea on the sidelines, swapping stories of that first patrol on Marsh Road when a brave brindle made headlines. Yet perhaps the most profound testament to Rook and whiskey's legacies came in the unlikely form of a small girl named Marcy, a shy, autistic third grader who rarely spoke but blossomed under the gentle guidance of Sweetgrass, a Pitbull Beagle cross trained in Crossover's therapy track module. Sweetgrass was part of a new initiative pairing therapy-certified crossover dogs with children needing social support. When Marcy first met Sweetgrass at a school event, she simply reached out to stroke the dog's head. Over the following weeks, staff noted the girl's breathing steadied within Sweetgrass's presence. Her first spoken word, a tremulous "hi," came when Sweetgrass pressed his nose to her palm in a gesture of friendship. News of Marcy's breakthrough traveled through the district, reminding everyone that Crossover's mission extended well beyond fugitives and narcotics. It also encompassed the quiet, transformative power a dog can have on a frightened child, on a paramedic in crisis, on a community bracing against the night. Sweetgrass, proud recipient of both Valor and Compassion citations, performed at meetings and assemblies, her calm demeanor a living rebuke to those who insisted certain breeds could never serve as therapy animals. By now, Willow County's program had inspired other rural jurisdictions to launch their own crossover units. In Forest Ed Colorado towns, handlers trained Pitbull German Shepherd mixes to track lost hikers over high alpine ridges. In the rice paddies of Louisiana, deputies utilized crossover dogs to sniff out clandestine grow operations and guide flood rescue boats through murky bayous. Each adaptation bore the hallmarks of Rook's and whiskey's pioneering spirit, resourceful, tireless, and propelled by an unspoken bond with the humans they served. In the golden twilight of one particularly long day, Deputy Singh returned home to find Rook quietly enjoying his favorite armchair, and whiskey sprawled at his feet. Rook's silver hair aura glowed as the lamp cast warm circles across the rug. Singh knelt and fed them both a treat, their nightly reward, then sat back to watch them rest. Above them, the photograph of Rook's first fugitive bust and whiskey's wildfire rescue hung on the wall. Side by side, Singh traced the glossy frames with reverent fingers, whispering a promise that their service would never be forgotten, that every bark and every bound would ring out in memory of the lives they had safeguarded. And so, as the seasons cycled through sun and snow, Willow County thrived under the watchful noses of its K9 crossover division. From the hush of dawn in the cattail marsh to the red glare of wildfire's edge. From the silent corridors of a barn turned into a scent lab to the bright school gym where sweetgrass lent a gentle paw to a shy girl. One truth endured. In every hurdle of fear. In every tangled patch of unknown. Courage rides on four paws and a heart more steadfast than any dogma, just as Rook once showed. And whiskey and sweetgrass continue to teach. Day by day, bark by bark, that true guardianship knows no bounds. Long after whiskey's triumph in the wildland fire, and sweetgrass's quiet miracle in the school hallway, Willow County's K9 crossover division continued to blaze new trails of service. In the early spring thaw, Deputy Singh found herself mentoring a fresh cohort of handlers and their mixed-breed partners. Each dog a testament to the program's simple creed: if you have the nose, the heart will follow. Among the recruits was Bravo, a powerful American Staffordshire Terrier whose lineage traced back to Rook himself. And Jinx, a small but tenacious Staffordshire Lab cross whose keen ears had already detected a series of illegal logging trains late at night along the county's rail spur. Training days unfolded beneath the open sky, where fog-draped marshes morphed into blazing wildfires and rickety barns into narcotics lairs. Bravo learned the art of rapid scent cone triangulation, sniffing multiple points and then locking onto the precise angle of drift that led to buried evidence. Jinx mastered the micro-odor alert, a single bark pattern whispered through the wind that signified the faint whiff of gunpowder alongside human sweat. Together, they formed a new vanguard of guardians, one broad and unstoppable, the other small yet unwavering. One muggy June evening, news crackled over the scanner of a missing teen last seen near the river's bend at dusk. Boat crews searched from the water's edge but found no trace. Sheriff Andrews assembled the crossover unit under sapphire skies thick with cicada song. Bravo, on the leash of Deputy Morales, pressed his entire body into the soft earth of the riverbank, then pivoted west, toward a knotted stand of willows where the water ran shallow and the scent of sweat mingled with that of wild mint. Jinx flanked him, tiny paws skirting the mud to avoid trailing bark marks. Under their guidance, the rescue team found the teen's abandoned bicycle half submerged and, 50 yards further, the girl herself, lost but unharmed, climbing a tree to escape rising water. That rescue made national headlines. Staffy duo saves trapped teen from river's grasp, and shone fresh light on the crossover concept. Breeds once sidelined by tradition could outpace every expectation when trained with precision and compassion. Legislators cited the incident during debates on rural search and rescue funding, securing grants to equip every sheriff's office with one crossover dog and handler. Meanwhile, the Crossover Canine Institute at State University expanded its research wing. Dr. Miriam Costello, a leading motor neuroscientist, unveiled a groundbreaking study on olfaction-driven neuroplasticity in working dogs, demonstrating that crossover breeds actually rewired portions of their olfactory cortex when trained for multi-role tasks, tracking people, detecting narcotics, and signaling hazards, with greater speed and accuracy than many specialized hounds. Her work earned a prestigious science medal and prompted other agencies to reevaluate the genetic potential of mixed breeds. In late summer, when a spate of overpowering barn fires threatened livestock and livelihoods, Bravo and Jinx were dispatched together on a multi-unit operation. Under the flicker of spotlights and the roar of embers, Bravo pushed through heat and smoke to root out the blaze's origin, a malfunctioning generator beneath feed troughs, while Jinx, trained in thermal canine mapping, barked at the lone farmer trapped beneath a collapsed beam in the loft above. Fire crews rescued the man, saved the feedstock, and wrote a new chapter in crossover lore. No cadre of bloodhounds, no array of EF-class drones could have matched the split-second coordination of two dogs and their handlers reading danger as one. As autumn's amber light slanted across the training field, the crossover teams prepared for their first international Pitbull K9 summit. Delegations came from across Europe and Australasia, bringing their own crossover mixes, bulldog Alsatians, terrier beagles, even compact boxer crosses. In conference halls and field demos, teams shared their breakthroughs, a French brigade's integration of scent droplet analysis with canine alerts, a New Zealand squad's use of avalanche-trained pit husky crosses for mountain rescue, and an Argentinian unit's development of river sniff jackets that imprinted waterproof scent sleeves with human DNA traces for floodwater detection. On the summit's final day, Rook's bronze relief, transported from Willow County, stood at the center of the expo. Flanked by Whiskey's and Sweetgrass's likenesses, Sheriff Andrews and Deputy Singh took the stage, flanked by Bravo and Jinx in custom-fitted vests. Andrews spoke of Rook's first track along Marsh Road, of the cabin busts and fire rescues, and of the program's improbable rise from budget-cut necessity to global exemplar. Singh recalled a childhood memory of Rook's gentle head rest on her knee. The first time she realized a dog could be more than companion, could be partner, protector, and pioneer. When the applause finally waned, Singh knelt and offered a final ear scratch to Bravo and Jinx. Their eyes shone with the same steady devotion that had guided Rook through every challenge. In that moment, the summit's delegates offered a collective vow to carry Crossover's mission into every uncharted field, every storm-shrouded bog, every silent hallway where peril might hide, to train each new dog not by lineage but by promise, and to honor Rook's and Whiskey's legacies by placing courage and compassion ahead of every constraint. As dusk settled on the international gathering, handlers from a dozen countries stood in a silent circle around Rook's statue. They patted their dogs' heads, spoke soft words of gratitude, and laid scented wreaths at the statue's base, eucalyptus sprigs for Australasia, lavender for France, sage for the American West, and across the cool shade of multinational flags, the brindle sentinel's bronze muzzle caught the last light, a timeless promise that wherever need arose, presence before catastrophe would answer the call, 4 paws and a boundless heart at a time. Long after the international summit wrapped its banners and the delegations returned home, the ripples of K9 Crossover's success continued to surge across continents, oceans, and the breadth of human endeavor. In the rolling vineyards of Portugal, patrol units trained their own Pitbull greyhound crosses to track illicit bootleg stills hidden in the terraced slopes, supplementing border police dog teams that once relied solely on metal detectors. In South Africa's sprawling Karoo, an ancient trade route reopened with new hope. Crossover dogs partnered with wildlife rangers to sniff out poachers stalking endangered antelope. Their method borrowed directly from the cabin busts and fugitive tracks that had first proven so effective in Willow County's tangled wetlands. Back in Willow County, the Crossover Academy's curriculum grew ever more sophisticated. Lecture halls that once echoed only with the shuffles of handlers now pulsed with live feed footage of Jinx bark alerts in suburban school corridors, Bravo's scent cone demonstrations in marshland wind tunnels, and Jinx's micro-odor runs through silt-laden riverbanks. Scholars in canine cognition and behavioral neuroscience collaborated with veteran handlers on joint research projects, dissecting the precise muscle synergy that allowed Pitbull crosses to navigate obstacles bloodhounds would struggle to surmount. The phrase, working breach, entered standard lexicon. It described the moment when a dog's body bridged instinct and influence, forcing every barrier, whether bramble thicket or locked door, to yield to a steadfast heart. Communities everywhere embraced the lessons learned. In the tight alleys of Venice, Italy, police repurposed gondola dog sled rigs for flood emergencies, their handlers guided by crossover protocols to wedge boats between sunken steps and carry stranded residents to higher stone bridges. South Korea's emergency recovery teams, mapping out earthquake zones of fallen concrete and twisted rebar, tapped into Crossover's block mapping methods to equip regional Shepherd Pitbull hybrids with collapsible ladders and heat imaging goggles. And in the heart of the Brazilian rainforest, indigenous tribes partnered with Crossover trainers to deploy terrier pit bulls that could track illegal logging crews through the green labyrinth. Then bark signal rangers to the stashed equipment and forged permits. Yet even as K9 Crossover's prestige soared, its founders remembered the humble origins at Marsh Road's swampy edge. Each year on the founding anniversary, the Academy opened its gates to the very first recruits, families who sought to adopt Crossover dogs not for law enforcement, but for the quiet courage they brought into daily life. Retirees with mobility challenges learned to read their dog's protective leans as early warnings when health complications threatened. College students battling anxiety found in their Pitbull crosses a steadfast companion whose bark alerts could interrupt spirals of panic with an immediate, grounding presence. In living rooms and on front porches, the simple act of a dog laying itself between danger and a loved one became the most profound lesson in compassion and resilience. As the century turned, Willow County's boardwalk and the sprawling fields beyond stood as living monuments to 4 generations of guardians, from Rook's first path through Dusk shrouded reeds, to Whiskey's fearless charge into flame, to Sweetgrass's silent comfort in a school hallway, to Bravo and Jinx traversing riversides at midnight. The Sentinel Circle, a rotating sculpture installed at the Crossover Academy's new research wing, depicted 4 dogs in relief, each one at a different stance of alert, nose low to the ground, chest high with bark signal, body braced against fire's glow, and finally, muzzle tilted skyward in eternal watch. Gazing upon it, visitors felt the unity of instinct and innovation, of muscle and mind, of love made manifest in service. At last, the true legacy of K9 Crossover revealed itself not in medals or statutes, but in the quiet insistence of presence, that in every community threatened by the unknown, there stands a dog ready to become a sentinel, alert to the faintest call for help. Wherever those dogs tread, through marshes or market squares, under neon lights or star-studded skies, they carry forward an unbroken lineage of guardianship. Each bark a vow, each paw print a promise, that no matter how deep the shadows grow, there will always be 4 paws and a faithful heart standing between light and its darkest threat. And so, in the hush before dawn and the stir of every new day, their silent watch endures, presence before catastrophe, forever carried on the boundless courage of dogs.